what am I on though? This one? Yes. Okay, so you first have to put it in the correct order, then you can pull out your A, B, and C. And you don't have to write your A, B, and C. I did it because it's the first time we're doing it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fill out the quadratic formula, which, if you get lost on the song, oh my gosh, it's right there at the top of your paper. Okay. So we will do x equals opposite b, so negative 3, plus or minus square root. B squared is 9, minus 4, a is 1, and c is negative 5. All over 2 times 1. I just plugged in all my numbers. And we'll go ahead and simplify a bit. X equals negative 3 plus or minus square root of, let's see, 9 minus negative 20. 9 minus negative 20, that becomes plus 20. So square root of 29 all over 2. There are 3 things that we need to ask ourselves to see if we are done. There are 3 things we need to ask ourselves. We need to go through these 3 things. I'm going to write the 3 things down. First thing is, after you've done your quadratic formula, you've simplified. First thing you want to ask yourself, can the radical, the square root, can that be broken down any further? Can the square root be simplified? Are there any perfect squares I can pull out of 29? Simplified further. So can square root of 29, is that a perfect square? Like a square root? No. Is 29 divisible by a perfect square, like 4 or 9 or 16 or 100? Okay. So you have to go through that. I didn't have to do anything because they couldn't be simplified, but you do need to check. The second thing we want to check for is if the denominator, the bottom number, the denominator, if it's a positive number, it has to be positive. So is our denominator positive? Remember, the denominator is the bottom. Have you ever heard this? There's a fine line between numerator and denominator. Get it? Yeah, I get it. Okay. I don't remember you got that. Line between. Okay. All right, so this one's positive. We don't have to do anything, but we do need to ask that every time, because if it was negative, we would have to do something, and I'll show you what that would be, because I'll do an example like that. And then the third thing is a teeny bit tricky, but is there a number you can factor out of the top and bottom to cancel? So we're like, basically, can we reduce the fraction? And I'll show you what that looks like when we have one. This one does not have that. So you need to go through those 3 steps, or you're not going to have the most simplified version, and you wouldn't get full credit for one of these questions. I'll give you a moment if you're still copying this directions. We'll keep coming back to this. So when you look at this, when I talk about a number we could factor out, we're talking about not a square root, but like the number that's outside the square root. So here there's a 3, and what's in front of the square root? There's a number there. What is it? 1. So those don't have any factors in common. And on the bottom, 2 doesn't have any factors in common with the 3. So you couldn't do anything with this one. So this is our answer. Those are our 2 answers. We can't simplify it any further. You just have negative 3 plus radical 29 all over 2 and negative 3 minus radical 29 all over 2. Okay. So you will notice sometimes not a lot of work. Sometimes there's more. if you have to do stuff like that. Okay, with these, let me see which one I want to do. Oh yeah, I want to do number 1. So we get x squared minus 6x plus 4 equals 0. Is that in the correct form? So we're going to sing our song. We do x equals opposite b. What's the opposite of negative 6? Positive 6. Plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I didn't really leave a whole lot of space, by the way, for you, but we'll only do 2 from that section anyway. Actually, we might only do 1. We'll see. How do I simplify it? X equals 6 plus or minus square root of, that's 36 minus 16. 20 all over 2. And we have it simplified. So now we go through our 3 questions. First question is that radical 20, it cannot be simplified further. It's not a perfect square, but is there a perfect square in 20? Yeah. So square root of 20 is square root of what and square root of what? 4 and 5. And the square root of 4 is 2, and then square root of 5. So we're going to replace square root of 20 with 2 square root of 5. Okay, and then the next question is the denominator positive? Yes. And then the last question, is there a number we can factor out of both the numerator and the denominator that will cancel, that are the same number basically? So on the top, I'm only looking at the 6 and the 2. I'm not looking at the square root anymore. And on the bottom, I'm looking at the 2. Do they all have a factor in common? Factor, something that divides out of it. The number 2. So what we're going to do on top is we're going to factor out, like undistribute. We've been doing factoring. So we're going to undistribute the 2. That's going to go in front with a parenthesis. And then left over, when I divide out that 2, 3 plus or minus radical 5. On the bottom, I'll do the same thing, 2. And then what's left over is a times by 1. So if you can undistribute, if you can divide out the same number from the entire top and the bottom, then you can cancel it. So I can cancel those 2. And I will have 3 plus or minus radical 5. It's over 1, but I don't have to write it over 1 because it's just over 1. I just write the 3 plus or minus radical 5. You just got to be careful with that factoring. It has to come out of both terms on top, because if you only, like, right here, if I only canceled the 2's, I would have a different answer. If I only canceled the 2's, I would have a different answer. And something bad would happen. If you cancel over addition like that, if you cancel stuff that's next to addition signs or negative signs, minus signs, I mean, and you will not get stuff in your each of them. If you get these faster. Okay, let's try a different one. Actually, let's just go to example 2. Example 2. So example 2, solve 25x squared minus 8x equals 12x minus 4 using the quadratic formula. Is that in the correct form? It's not. So what should we do? Subtract 12x. Does that fix the format? What also should I do? Add 4. So I have 25x squared minus 20x plus 4 equals 0. So we have it in the quadratic standard form. We can sing our song. X equals opposite b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. What should we do next? You have your calculator handy so you can be calculating this stuff instead of using your teacher as a calculator? The next thing I'm going to do is find out what is underneath the square root. That'll be my next step. So I'll do 400 minus 4 times 25 times 4. We're going to do it by hand. 4 times 25 is 100 times 4. What do you get under the square root? 0. Okay. My next thing is I need to look at the square root, and can the square root of 0 be simplified? What's the square root of 0? If you're not sure, type it in your calculator. What's the square root of 0? It is 0. Because 0 times 0 is 0, right? So that's now 20 plus or minus nothing over 50. We now have 20 plus or minus nothing over 50. So if I take 20 plus nothing, or if I take 20 minus nothing, well, it's still 20. So I got 20 over 50 now. And does that reduce? Too fast. So I only got one answer, and I'm trying to find, like, graphically the x-intercepts. What does it look like if I only have one x-intercept? What'd you say?
A vertex.
That would be the vertex. The x-intercept would be the vertex right there, if there was only one. And then, what gave me the only one answer? What gave me only one answer? Sabrina? Why did I only have one answer when I had two answers before?
Not because what's in the square root like cancel out.
Yeah, because the stuff that we're plus or minusing for this one, we're adding 0 or we're minusing 0, that's nothing. So that's where the two answers would normally come from. Because at 0, we only got one answer. Okay, the next one is solve negative x squared plus 4x equals 13 using the quadratic formula. I'm going to do this one, so I'm going to move the 13 over. I'm telling you normally I would move the x squared and make it positive. I normally would. But I'm going to purposely move the 13 over so x squared stays negative, and I can show you what to do if that happens. So I'm going to subtract the 13 from both sides. Normally I wouldn't do it that way. Normally I'd try to make the x squared positive, but just for an example, I'm going to show it to you that way. And then we'll do our song. X equals opposite b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Negative 4 plus or minus square root 16 minus something, 52. 16 minus 52, what do we get? If you don't actually practice calculating this stuff and you're planning to use your calculator, just call it.
Oh.
I'll call you. But if you're not actually practicing with your calculator because you're waiting for somebody else to give you the answer, you may be typing in your calculator on your homework every single time wrong, but you're not going to know because you didn't practice it in class. Jessica, what were you going to say?
Oh. Negative 36.
Negative 36. Okay, so now I have my radical is negative 36. Can we simplify the square root of negative 36? What's the negative part turn into? I, and what's the square root of 36? So we'll have a 6i in that place. So that was our first set of making sure the radical simplified. Second one is the denominator positive. It is not. So if that happens to you and you don't have the denominator positive, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take this and you're going to have to multiply by a value of 1. You're only allowed to multiply by 1. But it's going to be in discards. So if I multiply by -1 over -1, that is the same value as 1, because they're the same number on top and bottom. But it will change the appearance of my denominator. It'll make it a positive denominator. So it doesn't change the value of the question, it just changes the appearance. So I now have a positive 4, but I have to change the plus and I have to change the minus. I have to change both of them because that's actually two different answers. So if I do a positive times a negative, what do I get? A negative. If I do a negative times a negative, what do I get? I get a positive. So like on top I would have 4 negative positive 6i. But we don't write it that way. If there's one positive and one negative, we just still write it as plus minus. So we like switched them, but you can't really tell because they switched to each other. And then the last question that we wrote down earlier was that we have to see if there's a factor that can come out of the top and cancel with a factor on the bottom. Is there any factor of 4 and 6 that cancels with 2? 2. So we're going to factor out that 2. And on top we'll have 2 plus or minus 3i. And then on the bottom, that 2 will like be multiplied by 1, so you'll cancel it. And we'll have 2 plus or minus 3i. So there's 3 U tries at the bottom. There's like numbers 4, 5, and 6. I want you to pick 2 of them, your favorite 2, and try them. You try 2 of them. If you want to do all 3, that's fine if you have time. You try 2 of them. Okay, so the last thing that we're doing is called analyzing the discriminant. The discriminant. Discriminant. So the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. That is called the discriminant. And the discriminant, the b squared minus 4ac tells us how many solutions and what kind of solutions you will have before you even finish solving it. And before I even explain the discriminant, I want to show you something really cool. You see not the discriminant. You see negative b over 2a. Does that sound familiar at all? The axis of symmetry. And when we graph a parabola, our axis of symmetry is in the middle. And then from the axis of symmetry, we're adding or subtracting. We're going this way, and we're going this way a certain amount to get the x-intercepts. So the negative b over 2a is that middle, and then you add or subtract an amount to get x-intercepts. You wouldn't make any sense before. So the b squared minus 4ac tells us what kind and how many solutions. So if the b squared minus 4ac was 0, if I was adding nothing right and left, how many x-intercepts would I have? If I were starting in the middle and adding nothing left to right, where would I be sitting on my graph to get the x-intercepts and adding nothing left to right from the axis of symmetry? I'd be at the vertex, and that's where there would only be one x-intercept. If I add a positive number, that's going to be somewhere above the vertex, and there will be two real solutions. But if my square root is a negative number, that would be somewhere below the axis of symmetry. And what kind of solutions would I have? Negative solutions, look at my graph, my red graph, and then look at my blue dots at the bottom. None, but I would have two, but they would be imaginary. If there was a square root of a negative number, we'd have imaginary ones. But your choices are two real, one real, or two imaginary. There's no other option. So with the discriminant, then that's exactly what I just talked about right there. With the discriminant, we're going to fill out a chart. You're going to find the discriminant, and we're going to decide how many solutions there should be. So the discriminant is just b squared minus 4ac. So for the first one, b squared is 36 minus 4 times 1 times 10. So 36 minus 40 is negative 4. So that's our discriminant. Notice I did not write the square root. The square root is not part of the discriminant. So if the discriminant is negative, we have how many solutions? 2, and they are imaginary. Which makes sense, because if you do the quadratic formula, you will have an I. So imaginary. And you can only have 2 imaginary, you cannot have 1 imaginary. They come in pairs. Next one, discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. We're going to do 36 minus 4 times 1 times 9. So I get 36 minus 36 is 0. If the discriminant is 0, what will we have? 1 real solution. And then finally, b squared minus 40c, 36 minus 4 times 1 times 8. So 36 minus 32. Discriminant is 4. The discriminant is 4. How many solutions will we have? 2, because it's positive, and they will be real solutions. So I would like you to try 7, 8, and 9. 7, 8, and 9. And when you get those, all you have to do is write the discriminant and then say how many and what kind of solutions they would be. And after those, we'll work on our assignment. 7, 8, and 9. Coming around, so make sure I can see, one of your answers. Another one's not. B squared. positive, positive, negative, that's not really helpful, square root of negative. This is correct, yeah, that one. That's the right number you said. B squared minus 4 times a half is 2. It's negative 1 is a negative 2. 1 minus negative 2. You didn't like each of that. And then that one's not very I fixed one. Oh. If you have 3 checks, the assignment will be up here in a moment. I gotta handwrite it though.
Is it on Big Idea? Just the book.
It is in the book. Because I only do big ideas when I can get the card back. But if you have 3 checks, you can start. I'm just writing it from over there. It doesn't take too long. I've already done it. Well, the discriminant ones don't take that long. We kind of had 2 where I told you to get up and stretch. We're not playing games. I don't even have a
I just realized she's a refrigerator.
I know, I realized that was too.
Are you serious? That's pretty nice though. I'm like, are you gonna do like I forgot some of the cups? Because when I stayed at break stage, you are so nice.
You can't smell This is probably one of those candy
Sorry.
But just one of the every day.
And I've got a few books over there. File book.
Every day.
I need to minus 4 times a half times negative 1. So that'll be negative 4 times a half
That's why my I'm 16. It's been 16 years. Yeah.
And I don't know that You're not writing your stats either, so I can't tell you where you're doing that.
Is that why it's not in your room?
You had the one. If you need a book, there's a few right over there. If you need a book, there's a few of them sitting over there. Make sure I get it back. Seven minutes, do a question or two.
Real number? X equals like
Do a few questions. Do a few questions.
Hey, I'll come back to it
Two books left. Two books left.
Oh, yeah.
Two books left.
Breast cancer rate for just freedom.
Oh wait, are we
imaginary. It's too imaginary. It's so true.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about aliens. And the solutions of the quadratic equations are x equals.
Oh, we were right.
Do question 1, 2, and 3 before you leave. You had more than enough time. Oh, I gotta.